Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome back to some more World of Tanks replays. Now, before we get any further with this, some of you may have noticed there haven't been that many videos lately, and I haven't exactly been around all that much. Haven't been on Discord in a little while, etc. The short reason is I've been busy as hell. It's things like it's winter, and everyone seems to be catching some sort of infection pretty regularly, so it's either me being ill, Loki being ill and her really needing some help with the little one being ill and needing to look after the little one, or something like that. But also, we've been in the process of trying to buy a new house, which is always fun and games. Those of you who have been with this channel, and with me, a little while, may be thinking, seriously, you're going to move again? For those of you who haven't been with us so long, I think I started putting videos on this channel in 2014, and in the intervening time, I have moved once, twice, thrice, four. This would be my 5th move since 2014. Hopefully, it would be the last one for a while. So, that's always a bit of fun and games. And it's just been, like I say, it's just been really, really busy. And to help with that, I've also been pulling some extra hours at work and whatnot. So, time has been rather fleeting. I've also just... I've not had much time for playing the game myself, and things like that. And the thing is, with a small person around... Oh, hello, Mr. Chinese light tank. The one thing you notice is that some of your older hobbies become more difficult executed. And so playing computer games and even doing videos like this, recording, is actually quite awkward. When you've got a toddler who constantly demands your attention. Essentially, you have to do it when she's asleep, and you've got a lot of things that you're trying to get done while she's asleep. So what I've spended? That's terrible grammar. What I've spent a lot more of my time doing is getting back into tabletop war games and doing some painting, because I can put down a paintbrush at short notice if I need to go and deal with a toddler, basically. And it's something I haven't done in a while, and it's been good fun. So, yeah, mostly painting 40k. But I've got some Lord of the Rings miniatures on my list of things to paint, and some Airfix models, and some War Machine, and other bits and bobs like that. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's actually pay a little bit of attention to the games I've got for you today. So, the last video I put out was me having a couple of games in some light tanks. It was the Super Chaffee and the T52. These are all machines that Wargaming give away as part of their sort of birthday celebrations and whatnot. I thought we'd stick with the light tanks today, and we're not going to go with overpowered light tanks. Both of these games are going to be in British light tanks, which will give some people the sweats. But we're going to be driven today by Azekal, who, if you remember, is a rather natty light tank driver. And he actually makes these things look like they don't suck. So, there's that. We're starting off today in the LHMTV. This is the Tier 8 British light tank. And you might have noticed, by the way, we're on Fisherman's Bay, and you might have noticed that Azekal is having some problems with his ping. So, he's actually had a pretty respectable impact on this game, this Tier 9 match here, so far. He's got himself 1700 assistance damage, 900 regular damage, and 2 kills. You know, that's pretty respectable. And then he had some, I don't know if it was the server playing silly beggars, or his internet, or what, but ping went to hell. Which is a bit of a problem, especially when you're in a light tank sitting in a bush in the middle of the map. But anyway, so he is essentially doing the scouting thing from the centre of these maps. And I think I showed a replay in the Setter, the Tier 7 on this line, some time ago. So this is moving up to tier 8, and spoiler alert, the second game, also from Azekao, is going to be in the tier 9. So what is it that makes the British tanks, light tanks, mediocre? Well, not even mediocre. Most people would argue actively bad. Well, there's a number of things, but let's start off with the guns, shall we? When you look at the descriptions, they're described as having naval guns, which makes them sound big and punchy and powerful, and the reality is they're nothing particularly special. They tend to have atrocious DPM and really low ammunition counts, you might have noticed. Despite having done only about 900 damage and chosen his shots pretty carefully, Azekao is down to fewer than 10 rounds of armor piercing. And yes, he's carrying 10 rounds of APCR, but that isn't that much. And this gun, this is basically the 20 pounder. So 230 alpha, 226 shell pen, and a shell velocity of around 1,000 meters per second, and if you load the gold, that pen goes up to just shy of 260. So it's not as if Azekao's been spamming the shots all over the place, and that's good because you can't in these tanks. Having said that, we seem to be getting a kind of longer game here, which is quite nice from some tasty assistance. Spotted. Quite nice from a light tanker's perspective. Hello. Oh, really? Bounce? Oh, no. This is getting a little awkward. Quite nice from a light tank's perspective because you have the time and the opportunity to really start racking up some meaningful contribution there, because you have to play light tanks, generally speaking, pretty carefully. And, you know, he manages to get the light tank on the enemy team killed there. Which is valuable because that takes out the enemy's eyes, and so in the vision game that gives you a decided advantage in your little light tonk. Took a shot there from somebody, the LT-432, could have been worse. That guy got a high damage roll, but he's packing a relatively small gun. Side of the TS5, oh, the last 3 shots. It's those sorts of shots that, okay, they weren't fully aimed, but they weren't poorly aimed, and they definitely could have gone home. And one of the frustrating things about these light tanks is you kind of have to carry a respectable stock of APCR because you have such poor ammunition count. You can't afford to get bounces because you'll just run out of ammo. And it's not as if you're particularly quick or have a stunning view range. Your camo's decent, but not the best. And anyway, I'm going to stop complaining about them, and we're just going to focus on Azekao prodding Buttock. So, how is the game standing? Well, his team have actually got themselves into a good position. That was probably the first actively poor shot that Azekao's taken this game. Team's got themselves into a decent position due in no small part to the fact that Azekao at this point has racked up 4,000 assistance damage and got 2 kills, which is a nice contribution for any light tank, really. Scoreline is 9-5. They've got a hit point advantage as well, so this really should be the stage of the game that's pretty much a clean-up. And the 2 games I've chosen for you today, one of the reasons I wanted to show them was they're on maps that they're definitely not bad maps for light tanks, but it's not as if I'm showing you, you know, Malinovka, Prokhorovka, maps like that. I think often people in their light tanks, God, this reload, they get themselves into the mindset that they need certain maps to do well. And yes, light tanks are quite map dependent, but you definitely can have a good game on some other light tanks as well. Loading a HE shell here, but he does not want to get slapped by that waffle thrower. So yeah, hopefully someone else will move forward in order to spot the guy. Oh, there he is, HE shell, HE shell, HE shell. Oh, lovely. Penetration there for 308. What's the average damage on these rounds? 280, yeah. So that was a slightly high damage roll, but was definitely nice to get. So Fisherman's Bay here, for example, is by no means a bad light tank map. You've got lots of open ground and concealment to work with, and that's kind of my point. There's actually a fair few maps in the game that, whilst they don't necessarily spring immediately to mind as being the top tier light tank maps, they're definitely maps on which you can have a good impact without too much difficulty in your light tanks. And there we go, that's with the death of the Udas, that closes out the game. And actually it was Azekao doing the spotting, so there's some more tasty XP. So let's have a look at the post-game stats for this one. So that game was actually enough for an ace tanker, spotter ribbon, fire for effect, and a patrol duty medal, which is always nice to get. And the thing with scout medals is sometimes people get them for getting those initial spots, and then they're pretty much useless for the rest of the game. Patrol duty, generally indicates that you have made a meaningful contribution to the game in your light tanks and other vehicles in which you're doing sort of scouting and spotting activities, of course. So that was a pretty nice game there. 1,777 damage done, 3 kills, 1,404 base experience. That's a result that anyone could be proud of. Top of his team by base experience and top of the match by a reasonable margin. AE Phase 1 also did well, G-Saw did well. There were a couple of guys on the friendly team, who made a good contribution. Commiserations to the Chimera, just shy of 3k damage there in his tier 8 in a tier 9 match, just wasn't enough, and the Char Future 4, also a good effort from him, but just not enough. Turns out that Udez at the end, who'd spent the entire game camping at the back of the map, yeah, he was the last one to die, and he managed 0 damage. TS5 at the back of the map in a heavily armoured American tank destroyer. Yeah, looks like one penetrating shot. That's just a bit grim for the enemy team. 13 shots fired, none of which were premium ammo. 10 hits, 9 penetrations for that damage count. Most of it actually from relatively close range. 2 hits received, 1 penetrated, 1 didn't. Bit of luck there, if we're going to be honest. 6 enemy vehicles spotted, 5 damaged, 3 destroyed. 5,961 assistance damage is nice. 2.55 kilometers travelled, and just shy of 30,000 credits made. That 20,000 on consumables is because Azakal was using pudding and tea. A nice patiently played game there, especially with that middle segment where the ping went to hell in a handbag. But good to see, just a nice steady contribution throughout the entire game essentially. So that's the first match for you. Let's go and have a look at another one. Here we go then, the second match of this video. We're moving it up to tier 9. This is the G-Saw. Azakal is driving for us, the tier 9 British light tank. And if you have a look at Azakal's replays on whatreplays.com, you get the impression Azakal quite likes this thing. And having spoken to a number of people who've gone up the British light tank line, the general consensus seems to be that while the G-Saw isn't necessarily a super duper amazing machine, it's probably one of the highlights of the British light tank line. Ooh, some knocked over trees there, has to be careful. Hello, Mr. WZ. It's kind of interesting when you look at it. It suffers from some of the same foibles as some of the other British light tanks. That was a poor shot. But you get this 90mm gun, which is in many senses very similar to the 20-pounder that you had at tier 8. That was another somewhat dubious shot, but yeah, just overall this seems to be a more popular package. And this is a feeling, or at least Azakal's liking for this tank, is something that's reinforced by the fact that you may or may not have noticed he's got 3 marks of excellence on his gun barrel, so yeah. Spotting out an IS-32 there, put a shot in, nicely done. Now, this is another one of those maps. This is Highway, and it's another one of those maps that's kind of, it's not a map that immediately comes to mind when you think, oh my god, I'm gonna prod buttock in my light tanks. But it's a decent light tank map in my experience, or it can be a decent light tank map in my experience. Oh, someone only just put that fire out. That was delicious. Now, it's relatively common if you spawn north on this map to see light tanks, bye-bye Mr. IS-32, to see light tanks kind of come over to this sort of region of the map and try and get some early spots on people who might be attempting to push from the south spawn up into the town, or potentially some spots on some light tanks who are from the enemy team trying to get into position, and sometimes some of the guys in the middle who are attempting to see what they can do. And it's one of those plays that has generally led to the feeling that the south spawn on this map is a bit weaker than the north spawn. Wargaming have fiddled with this map a little bit. I'm not sure if they've fixed it. I'll leave you to be the judges of that. Anyway, Azakau's moved down here to do some bushwork down on this side of the map. Just down here by the river. And we're going to see who we can spot. Now, we know there's an RU-251 who was last seen hanging around at sort of E3. And if you've played this map a reasonable amount, especially in light and medium tanks, hello Mr. Progetto, you'll probably be aware that it's relatively common for someone to be in that sort of central town region, E1 to E4, that kind of ballpark. So, hanging around here to see if they are going to rock up is probably not a terrible idea. RU-251, this would be a tasty kill. That was, again, a poor shot, because the RU-251, I think, had just driven, or was in the process of driving behind some terrain, and that risked being spotted. But Azakau makes up for it and follows it up with a very nice shot, and he's clearly confident in his camo rating here, because he is just firing. And someone, okay, maybe the light tank would have struggled to spot him there, but someone in a different position could get eyes toward him. And to be fair, the British light tanks do have a rather respectable camo rating, though it's generally not the best in class. That award often goes to the French, who get very good camo ratings indeed. Nice bit of assistance on the Panther there. Azakau being pushed up there too. Just over 2,500 assistance already and 1,500 of his own damage. So, again, already an eminently respectable game. Looks like he's going to maybe be going for the shot on the E50. Decides against it. Yeah. G-Saw's asking Azakau to move to G3. Yeah, that could work. It kind of depends what the enemy team have up here in the middle. The thing is that there are only 2 of the enemy tanks who have been spotted, 2 of the remaining enemy tanks who have been spotted. But you can see that Azakau is actually communicating with his team, which is always nice to see, and trying to let them know the sort of region he's going over to. Now, it's pretty obvious why the friendly team wants some spotting over in that sort of G3 region, because most of the enemy tanks haven't been spotted, and they do have a trio of tank destroyers there, and as it turns out, there's a sneaky little Progetto who I think is probably going to come off the worst in this trade. Although, having said that, he is on the wrong side, shall we say, of the raised roadway there compared to quite a lot of the tanks on Azakau's team, meaning that no one was actually able to get any clean shots on the guy, it would seem, and he gets away scot-free. However, Azakau is going to approach this from a slightly different direction because he really doesn't want to run straight into that Progetto again and potentially just get TD'd into oblivion. Though, this is a tier 8 match and 2 of those TDs are tier... So this is a tier 10 match and 2 of those TDs are tier 8. The ISU 152K, well, it's basically the old school ISU 152 with the big fat BL10. 152mm gun with 750 alpha damage and like 280 something penetration, even with regular AP rounds. The point is that's a tier 8 tank that you need to respect, because otherwise you're going to have a bad day. Now, Azakau actually really nice there, manages to get the spots out on the Progetto, and importantly that's the Litzvang 103B, who it seems was pushing up, which is an interesting play. Not sure what I think about that. I'm pretty sure what I think about that. I don't like it. There are the 2 ISUs, and just look at all this delicious assistance that Azakau is rocking up. Oh, sweet Baba. Nom 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 nom. And this is just delicious central. Come on, go for the track. Oh, lovely. Why do I say go for the track there? Well, just in case someone else, like that Progetto, got close enough to do some assistance. Tracking him should kind of make sure that you're going to get some assistance yourself. Guard there. Sure. 90mm shell gets eaten by his tracks, I suppose. Enemy Progetto 46 actually nailing the friendly Progetto 46, which is interesting. We don't know where that Progetto is. Although, you know, you can take a semi-intelligent guess based on the fact that he was able to make that kill, but we don't know for sure. Guard is having a bad day. Artillery stun is just wearing off of him, and there's only 4 of them left at this point, and it's looking like it's probably a done deal. 2 tier 8s and 2 artillery are probably not going to be able to pull a win out of this bag. But hey, stranger things have happened. Hello, Mr. Progetto, you are done. Hello, Mr. Guard, you're having a bad day. And be careful of the artillery. They love to kill light tanks. There goes the Guard, and that just leaves these 2 SPGs. That just leaves this 1 SPG. And it's the M53-55, so at least you know he's not got an autoloader to boot. He is dead. That is the game. Nicely done from Azekal there. Let's have a look at the stats. So there we go for the stats for this game. Ace Tanker, Spotter, Bruiser, Fire for Effect, and another Patrol Duty medal. And interestingly, Azekal notes that he kind of wasted some ammo at the beginning of the game. Yeah, some of those shots weren't the best. But overall, very well played, and does actually highlight, contrary to what some people seem to think, to be a very good player in this game. Marksmanship and accuracy are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all. Most of Azekal's impact in that game was based around his positioning. Reading the map and helping his team rather than his own marksmanship. So, something to bear in mind. Anyway, if we have a look at the team scores for that one, Azekal finished at the top. 2,594 damage, 3 kills, 1,654 base experience. Very, very nice indeed. Commiserations to the Progetto on the enemy team, over 3,000 damage there in his tier 8 medium tank, albeit a very good tier 8 medium tank, in a tier 10 world. Top of his team, and just not enough, is it? We've all been there. 15 shots fired, 12 hits, 11 pens for that damage count, about half of which was from longer range. 8 enemy vehicles spotted, 6 damage, 3 destroyed, 7,127 assistance damage, 3.58 kilometers travelled, and a fairly healthy profit, even though that was a tier 9 match. And he was running pudding and tea there, 43,500 credits. Now, I know I said I was going to show 2 games in this video, but if we're going to be honest, there's been a bit of a lack of videos lately, and I thought I'd throw in a third. So on with the third! So, for the surprise third game in this video, I thought we'd move it up to tier 10. We're with Azekal again, and he is in the Manticore, the British tier 10 light tank. Now, we've had a couple of maps where they're respectable for light tanks, but they're not sort of the top tier light tank maps that immediately come to mind. This is Prokhorovka. With 3 artillery per side, this could be interesting. Now, I will be honest, I was in 2 minds as to which game to go with here, but it's noticeable, having a look at Azekal's replays, that although he definitely has games in the Manticore where he does well, a disproportionate number of them compared to, let's say, the G-Saw at tier 9, a disproportionate number of them are on your archetypal light tank maps. We're thinking, you know, maps like Prokhorovka here, for example. And that makes me suggest, perhaps, that the Manticore is a bit less well-rounded than the tier 9, and that to do well, you probably are more map dependent. But I would be interested to know what you guys think, if you've gone up the British light tanks. Oh, spotted, oh no. Now, it's worth pointing out, equipment-wise, Azekal is using the Commander's Vision system here. He seems to be quite a fan of that module, which is fair enough. And despite the fact that this is going to be a good game, and we are going to get some slightly silly numbers, this isn't the best start in the world. Azekal did spot some guys, but no one was able to hit them, probably because it was too early in the game for the SPGs to get a shot on. Although he's going to have a bad day. That was I would argue, perhaps a dubious shot there. Once again, like its predecessors, the Manticore has a really limited ammunition capacity. That wasn't a fully aimed shot, though it would have been a kill, but someone else was probably going to get it. That Manticore didn't look like he was really moving. Having said that, you know, let's not stress too much. Having the Manticore dead on the enemy team is really valuable because that takes away the enemy's vision. There's only 1 light tank per team, and if a Leopard, for example, tries to play the same game whilst it doesn't really have quite the same camo, in particular mobility, low profile, etc. It's just not quite as efficient at it, and wow, there's an SPG. That's some crazy view range going on, although if we actually look at the map, because the light tank is dead, Azekal has actually been able to push up quite far there, and picks up the kill on that batch at 155.58. So straight away, first few minutes of the game, the enemy light tank is dead. There was only one per side. One of the enemy SPGs is dead on Prokhorovka. That's really valuable. Azekal is already up to 3,600 assistance damage and pushing down the one line quite effectively and kind of aggressively, although I would argue not overly aggressively. He's not taking stupid risks. Yeah. Go figure. I feel a little bit sorry for the heavy tank drivers in this game, whilst they certainly can still have a good game, of course. Prokhorovka, with a competent light tank driver on the enemy team, your light tank has gone to a better place. And the maximum amount of SPGs, it's kind of racking things up against you a little bit. Takes the shot there, it was pretty well aimed, but, well, gun said no, so there we are. Azekal is, however, up to 5,000 assistance so far. There's that T-62A who's attempting to pretend he's a light tank, and to be fair, he's not bad at it, but there goes 500 of his hit points. So, go figure. Now, it'd be really nice to get the friendly team kind of pushing along this one line. Azekal really wants to. I should imagine, certainly by the way he's driving, I think he does, but yeah, still have to be a little bit careful because there's a couple of scary machines on the enemy team. We don't know where those FV4005s are, and like that, they can take a lot of hit points off of their targets. Not irrespective of armor, but the armor doesn't necessarily make as much difference as you might like to think. Azekal gets spotted there because there was a moment when the IS-4 was able to draw a line of sight to him without there being some intervening concealment. But Azekal isn't dumb enough to sit still and wait to get shot. He was already moving, so he's essentially fine. The remaining SPG on the enemy team are really giving that mouse a bit of a battering there. And there's also the Super Conqueror. Azekal is taking a more elevated position, trying to find a different route through. There goes the IS-4. And Azekal is spotted, but this is becoming increasingly tricky for the enemy team. I would like to point out, by the way, at this point, the friendly team have managed to grind out an 8,000 hit point advantage over their opponents. Let's be honest, like 6,000 of that is Azekal spotting and enabling his team to do that. So the mouse is apparently just asking Azekal to move. I mean, he's been moving all game. I assume what he means is move forward. I mean, as Azekal has generally been at the front all game. I kind of get it. The mouse is getting artilleried, and he doesn't like being artilleried. I do understand. But Azekal is actually doing a pretty good job here, so, you know, there's that. You could argue maybe he should just pelt it down the one line, find the artillery, and that's probably what the mouse wants him to do, but that's quite a high-risk play, and your team have 8,000 hit points in the bag. You don't need to do that. It might be frustrating to still be taking some artillery shots here, but play it nice and safely, and you guys should have this in the bag. You don't do things that are potentially going to throw the game maybe quite hard. Let's not forget, Azekal here is only in a light tank. A stiff breeze would render him splashed. I mean, the Super Conqueror there, for example, pops up, takes out the T-62A, loses 700 hit points and dies. In the process telling us that the Object 277 is somewhere at the back. So we do need to be careful. A couple of shots from one or two of these tanks and Azekal is dead. Anyway, so he's playing a more, should we say, sensible game than perhaps some of his teammates would like. Now, the way this game is going, you can probably already see the writing on the wall. Again, this is another game where the team has just managed to grind out a pretty nice advantage over time. There goes the Super Conqueror. Sorry, there goes the Conqueror gun carriage. There's the Super Conqueror. Shot bounces on the front of him. Azekal will be reloading for approximately the next 2 months. But there goes the Super Conqueror. Some more tasty assistance. There's the Object 277. There's the FV4005. And I've got a funny feeling that Object might have decided that he couldn't be bothered to play this game and was just going to pretend he was a tank destroyer. So, go figure. Object 705 on the friendly team has kind of been whinging all game. Go figure. Can Azekal get some damage in here? Yes, he can, as well as a lot of assistance. Just the Object 277 and the Object 261 remaining. They are going to have a bad day. And there we go, that's the match. The end. Let's have a look at the post-game stats. So there we go. Ace Tanker, Spotter, Scout and Patrol Duty that time. Yeah, it's a bit silly. I just thought I'd throw that in there at the end. For entertainment purposes, essentially. 1,256 regular damage done isn't really anything to write home about. 3 kills is decent. 1,353 base experience is nice. Good job to the mouse in the end on the friendly team. 5,000 damage from him. Stayed alive till the end. And pushing forward. Hello, my darling. Are you awake already? Oh, wonderful. And commiserations on the enemy team to the Conqueror gun carriage, who managed 3,200 damage of his own, but not enough. 8 shots fired, 6 hits, 5 pens, 1,256 regular damage, as I mentioned. 12 enemy vehicles spotted, 5 damage, 3 destroyed, 13,000 over assistance damage. 4.5 kilometers travelled and just shy of 60,000 credits profit, which is a pretty nice result. There we go! Some light tank games for you. Thank you, Azekal. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, by all means, feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and I shall try to get as many videos out as I can. And with all that said, I will wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.